Dr. Bikita has accepted. You can begin. Just a second.
Maybe I should.
You begin.
Okay, so good morning. What I'm going to take us through is the continuation of module 1 that we would have done yesterday before the field, but due to unavoidable circumstances, we have to first do the field, then we come back here for this. So the session is about linking nature-based solutions to sustainable development goals and the national development plan for Uganda. And here we find that the nature-based solutions are relevant to so many of the sustainable development goals. Most obvious being that most of them directly address climate change and so many of the ecosystem issues. And when climate and ecosystems are addressed, in the end, it's to the benefit of us who are in that environment. So integrating these nature-based solutions into the national policies and programs for the different governments, for example, our government of Uganda with our national development plan, helps us attain the sustainable development goal agenda in the long run. So it can make international reporting requirements easier since we have come from the grassroots. We start with our nature-based solutions and how they come to help us with our national development plan goals. And then at the big run, we attain the sustainable development goals. So this nature helps us provide vital resources for the food, air, water, energy. But again, the same nature can create solutions to the challenges that we, the people, set out because of the way we utilize the resources that nature itself has given us. So these solutions can eventually become a bigger part in attaining the sustainable development goals. So they become a solution for the socio-economic, governance, and environmental outcomes. So how do we link these nature-based solutions to sustainable development goals? From the introduction, we got to know what nature-based solutions are. So we confirmed that they are crucial for attaining so many of the sustainable development goals because they provide effective and sustainable ways to address so many of the interconnected environmental, social, and economic challenges. From our illustration there, we can see that when we have our biodiversity, which is more or less in nature, people work with this nature. And when we are using nature-based solutions, while working with nature, we are going to have various advantages. For example, greenhouse gas reduction, flood and erosion control, coastal defense for those who are near the coastal line, food and water security, livelihoods, cultural values, and social capital. Then the cooling and shading. And all of these, if you realize that they're all nature-based solutions, but they again help us have our, improve our human being and the biodiversity around us, the surrounding around us. And all these, if you group them up, they are going to help us get that sustainable development goals. So integrating these nature-based solutions is crucial for the progress of the many of the sustainable development goals. When we go into each, try to see how nature-based solutions have helped attain the sustainable development goals. When we talk about nature-based solutions, we cannot leave biodiversity preservation out. So NbS directly contributes to halting biodiversity loss by restoring degraded ecosystems through activities like afforestation, cohabitant and carbon sequestration, and then maybe for agroforestry activities, for good health and well-being. People are going to get food from their agroforestry. And here we see that this can help us attain various sustainable development goals. Life on land is improved. Climate action through afforestation activities. Then responsible consumption and production. Then again, life below the water, because you are conserving biodiversity, it's not only on land, even whatever is in the water. Then when you look at climate change mitigation, when we are trying to fight climate change, we are trying to attain Sustainable Development Goals 13, 15, and 3. So by sequestering carbon and enhancing ecosystem resilience, these nature-based solutions play a vital role in mitigating the impacts of climate change. It can be through reforestation programs. Yesterday we saw how we are trying to restore the river banks. We are restoring the river banks through some afforestation. That afforestation is also going to help in climate mitigation. So this nature-based solution can help mitigate and adapt to the various climate change through actions which restore carbon and help manage wetlands for flood control. So NbS also helps in community well-being, helps people access nature, improves mental and physical well-being, thereby making NbS a holistic solution for so many communities. Here we can see an example of the green urban spaces, but from our site yesterday, we can also see that they are trying to improve the whole environment for the community. Someone trying to, their well-being was improved. The household we visited, we saw that now it has clean water for its consumption compared to before they got the incentive of that time. So this NbS also helps create jobs, improve public health through greener air and water, and build resilient communities. So for the community well-being, you realize that can attain that there is no poverty. The community that we visited yesterday was promised some goats. So those goats will help them improve on their livelihoods. So thereby attaining Sustainable Development Goal 1 and 3, then 12, 10, and 8. Then water management and sanitation. During restoration of wetlands and sustainable land use practices, this can contribute to the improved water quality and reduced risks of flooding. So this can help us obtain Sustainable Development Goal 3 and 6 for the clean water. So the water availability will be improved through quality, through natural processes, like using green infrastructure to manage water and reduce pollution. So from our site that we visited yesterday, the trenches that were being put in that plantation, they were also helping reduce a lot of siltation into the river. I imagine there are some communities that still use the water from the rivers. So if there was no improvement in trying to, improve on the water quality by that initiative, it would be worse off. I imagine it would have formed like mud water, like for the floods in Kampala. But because of the initiatives of NbS that are being used, we see that there is a lot of improvement. Then economic sustainability. NbS provides cost-effective solutions compared to traditional infrastructure. So thereby it helps obtain long-term benefits with minimal environmental impact. So this can help attain sustainable development goals on poverty, responsible consumption and production, then improve climate action. For the coastal habitat restoration, we are not at the coast, but still these nature-based solutions can help restore coastal ecosystems and protect the communities that are around, to reduce the storm surges and erosion. And they also help in attaining certain sustainable development goals, but not necessarily apply to our country because we're not on the coast, but we need to know what happens. Then regenerative agriculture is another nature-based solution initiative that helps in sustainable land management and regenerative soil projects that help in reducing emissions from agriculture and improve food security. When there is improving of food security, at least the first thing we know there, we are targeting no poverty and zero hunger, responsible consumption and production, and improving life on land. Then food security, nature-based solutions can also enhance sustainable agriculture and food production through a lot of soil conservation and building climate resilient systems. So this can help us attain the goals of zero hunger and no poverty. The food, when the food is in excess, some of it can be, sold out to help improve the livelihoods by attaining an income, small income for the different families. Then resilience to the disasters. Nature-based solutions help build resilience to natural hazards like floods, erosion, and landslides by using so many natural buffers and floodplains. And from here, this can help us attain Sustainable Development Goals 11 and 12 for sustainable cities and communities and responsible consumption and production. For sustainable cities, when we incorporate green spaces and natural infrastructure in urban areas, it can improve air quality, manage some stormwater, and increase the resilience to heat. So this can help us attain Sustainable Development Goal 11 for sustainable cities and communities. So those are some of the ways you find that nature-based solutions help in attaining the different sustainable development goals. Then when we go to the national development plans for Uganda, right now we are following the national development plan 4, which is to run 2025 to 26 to 29-30. And the objectives, I think most of us must be following the objectives of the National Development Plans for Uganda. 4. So their objectives, there are 5 objectives. The first one is to enhance production, productivity, and value addition in agriculture, industries, minerals, oil and gas. Then strengthen human capital development, support private sector-led growth, build strategic infrastructure, and promote good governance and security. So the issue is, how do we integrate our national development plan for the objectives that we have? How do nature-based solutions help us attain them? First, we looked at, there is one of them is to support private sector-led growth by promoting green businesses and eco-entrepreneurship through investments in sectors like renewable energy, restorative agriculture or sustainable agriculture, and ecotourism. We can attain our national development plan of supporting private sector-led growth. Then also supporting so many of the small, medium scale enterprises that focus on sustainable practices and technologies, and also help us support the private sector-led growth when we use our nature-based solutions. Then also among the objectives, we have to build strategic infrastructure. So while building our strategic infrastructure, we need to think about the communities. We can integrate green infrastructure, for example, urban parks and wetlands, to ensure urban resilience and provide ecosystem services like flood regulation and temperature modulation. When we try to look around here and we see there is a lot of green. Maybe it's the reason why it is too cool here. So those are some of the things that we would have need to plan for our infrastructure while developing infrastructure. The worst example is our National channel. When we start our plan, we are like, okay, there will be some green, there will be. But when you reach on ground, you realize that it's just a structure going up. Someone is building an arcade. So the plan that we all manage to see is not actually what is being implemented. And then we can also think of restoring and conserving natural infrastructure. For example, the forests, the watersheds around the different locations where they were naturally. This can ensure of a sustainable water supply and energy production. Then we also have an objective of enhanced production, productivity, and value addition. So this can be attained through improving health outcomes through cleaner air and water, resulting from well-managed ecosystems. Then also enhance food security and nutrition through sustainable agricultural practices and ecosystem services. For example, if we focus more on the restorative agriculture than our normal agriculture, we can be able to get our production, value addition, but again, our nature is being preserved better than the normal agriculture of just tilting and applying fertilizers here and there. Then promoting good governance and security. This we can help develop and enforce policies that support nature-based solutions, such as land use planning, environmental protection regulations, incentives for sustainable practices. And then we need to do a lot of advocacy for nature-based solutions so that the government gets to know about it. When they notice that this is a very good initiative, they'll basically try to put security for some of these places. For example, the wetlands, yeah, there are some wetlands they try to protect when they are over being encroached on. Though sometimes the protection is for their gain. But anyway, at some point there is some provision of security to some areas, like the parks right now. They are trying to really protect them so that they are not degraded a lot. Then we can also push for building institutional capacities for the design, implementation, and monitoring of these nature-based solutions. The best example we saw yesterday about the beehive line that helps put the elephants in their place and the communities remain in their place. So if the institutions involved, the moment they know that this is going to profit both us and the community, definitely they will involve themselves in the design and implementation of the initiative, just the way the national park guys did, so that they prevent elephants from encroaching on local people's work or gardens. So how do nature-based solutions benefit? How do these benefits of integrating nature-based solutions into the national development goals or plan aligned with the Uganda's development goals? So promoting sustainable land management by implementing soil and water conservation techniques helps increase on that agricultural productivity and resilience. Then conserving biodiversity, which can be by strengthening the management of protected areas and supported by local communities. This can help boost ecotourism and wildlife conservation. Then when we enhance climate change adaptation and mitigation through developing and implementing the national and the local developed adaptation plans, then we can also improve water resources management through restoring and protecting the different wetlands that are around us. All these can benefit of us integrating these nature-based solutions into the national development goals or plans of Uganda. Any questions? Have any questions, comments, additions, at least from what we. Yes.
Thank you for the good presentation. And I can assure you this arrangement. So very long notes. But now everything really ended. We are in the first year of implementation of our building plan. One thing I can assure you, everything you presented is get that from the plan. Like yesterday, one of participants talked about ATMs, which is like what's the development and so forth. Now, when you see what's the development and the industrialization, everything is targeting the same objective at any place. But CEC implementation slightly was cutting. It comes to the real implementation. That's why emphasis should be, because it was cutting. We cannot say now doing only this, then that. But everything that is catered for under program approach. There is no longer working silos. That's my sample.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much. One article that we realized from yesterday is that NbS has also helped in solution as an advantage. Because looking at the example we saw yesterday from they had conflicts with the partner and who are stuck because of the elements that were destroying their books. But as an initiative that they put up to prevent those elephants from destroying their crops, at least the conflicts have reduced. They no longer have those many conflicts with the who are as an entity.
Yes. That is a very good addition. Actually, because we saw it on ground, we might not as a nature-based solution, I don't think we think of conflict resolution as another solution. But when you're on ground and you see what is taking place, you realize, okay, if it wasn't for this initiative of nature-based solution that is being implemented, how would this conflict be resolved? And then maybe also conflict within communities. If someone accepts the intervention that has been brought on ground and the neighbor does not accept it, they'll kind of have this attitude towards their neighbor. But when they get on board, because they are all benefiting, they'll just be trying to work hand in hand to make sure that they are attaining the best from the initiatives that are being introduced to their communities. So.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. For me, talk about promoting the good governance and security. You also mentioned the people with land use planning. But when you look at the ownership of land here in Uganda, the land is owned by those families, and the ones that determine how to use it. For example, like how, or when we visited Kanyara village, I saw there was a lot of herbicide being used to deal that they were using herbicide to kill the weeds. So, and when you look at the nearest the river, so there will be like some spillovers to the river. Yeah, you are planting the tree, but at the same time, you are allowing the use of herbicide, and it's more dangerous. So I think as we implement NbS and planting trees, we should also look at training good practices that can again protect the water.
So I think we can go ahead to the next session. And before our break here, I suppose. So let us look at evaluation framework for nature-based solutions. When you look at this framework, the stakeholders that need to be involved in any nature-based solution project have to include the national governments, the local authorities, the donors, the financial institutions, and the local community. When I talk about the local authorities, with their people, because there is no way it will come out best without the people on the ground being involved. And for a concrete nature-based solution project to yield the outcomes desired, its design and verification should be based on a robust framework presented by various criteria with corresponding indicators. This one was adopted from IUCN 2020. And I want this to be more interactive, at least from what we saw yesterday. So a nature-based solution should effectively address societal challenges. We have to make sure that any nature-based solution is designed as a response to a challenge, which was formulated during a participatory decision-making process, including many members, but the community members here are key. So here, from where we visited at the river, when we look at the indicators, the most pressing societal challenge has to be prioritized. And then the challenges has to be clearly understood and documented. Then the tangible and substantive benefits to human well-being can also be delivered. So from our visit yesterday, from the most pressing challenge and from the prioritization that was given to reduce erosion of water to the river, and then the tangible and substantive benefits, we saw how the community members are benefiting. They are also getting better water, but now this one also managed to get a tank of water. So we have to know that you're designing your nature-based solution in such a way that it's addressing that a particular issue for society, a particular challenge. Then the second one, you have to design your nature-based solution. It has to be informed by scale. You have to recognize the complexity and uncertainty coming from the biophysical and geographical perspectives, as well as the economic and political systems. So here you need to recognize and respond to interlinkages between the economy, society, and ecosystem. Then you also need to seek synergies across the sectors and incorporate risk analysis. Anyway, for some reason, some of these things are hard to deal with, especially when there are certain people who have powers. So if you look at this, the scale of the Cohort channel, what they planned and what we saw on plan is not actually what we got. I don't know if they happened to think of the risk analysis. As when we saw the green on the plan, we're like, okay, this is going to improve the city. But now, while improving the city and the floods that followed, after starting to, implement the project, I don't know how the risk analysis was done, or if it was done to think of, okay, maybe a flood, we shall get some floods when we try to do this. So the next criterion, we also nature-based solution has to result in a net gain to biodiversity and ecosystem integrity. Here we need to try to avoid to undermine the integrity of an ecosystem. And how do we know? We can use the indicators that we have to make sure that the NbS addresses drivers of degradation and loss. And then we have to make sure that biodiversity conservation outcomes are identified, benchmarked, and assessed. Then the potential negative externalities arising from the nature-based solution are periodically assessed. Sometimes you might not necessarily avoid all the negatives, but how are you going to deal with them after assessing them? Now, the way you're dealing with them after assessing them is what is going to help our nature-based solution be attained more. Then you also have to look at the opportunities to enhance ecosystem integrity to make sure that they are incorporated into the nature-based solution. Then the nature-based solution needs to be economically viable. Here you have to think of the direct and indirect benefits and costs that have to be taken into account, together with identifying who pays and who benefits. So this cost effectiveness study has to be conducted. And then available alternative solutions have to also be estimated to find out if they can be implemented at that time, or if things fail, if plan A fails, does plan B bring out the best that we want? Then for the various resourcing options, such as private and public sector, as well as voluntary communities, have to be considered. You cannot rely on one financer. You never know what will happen to them the next morning. So nature-based solutions also have to be based on inclusive, transparent, and empowering government processes. So they need to be aligned with regulatory provisions and mechanisms that engage the affected stakeholders. So here, feedback mechanisms should be available. Participation should be on mutual respect and equality, regardless of gender, age, or social status. Then stakeholders affected have to be identified. And they need to be involved in the decision-making process so that it responds to the rights of all the stakeholders that are participating. Then you also need to have mechanisms to enable joint decision-making of the stakeholders in the affected jurisdiction. So here you can have meetings. You have a meeting and okay, this is what is taking place. How are we going to deal with it? The decisions should be communal, not individual, for any nature-based solution. Then there also needs to be some equitable balance, trade-offs between achievement of the primary goals and the continued provision of multiple benefits. So stakeholders have to be consulted on how the trade-offs should be addressed. And here you need to know the costs and benefits of associated trade-offs. and they need to be acknowledged. Then the rights and access to land and resources of the different stakeholders need to be respected, while periodic revision of the mutually agreed trade-offs limits are conducted. So the example we can talk about here, from where we visited yesterday, you realize that we planted trees on these people's land. But they are also benefiting, but the trade-off, the benefits, so they were promised some goats, so that will be more or less of a trade-off. Like, okay, I've been cultivating here, but now that there are trees, I'm going to get goats that will help me achieve certain goals for my own, human consumption. But again, it's also going to benefit the community by reducing the siltation into the river. Then also, nature-based solutions have to be managed adaptatively based on evidence. You have to ensure that there is a lot of adaptive management to address uncertainty and enhance ecosystem resilience. So here there has to be some monitoring and evaluation plan that has to be developed. And the nature-based solution strategy is mainly used as for basis for monitoring and evaluation. Then there also needs to be some iterative learning applied to ensure this adaptive management. At least from yesterday, we were more or less doing some monitoring and evaluation of the NbS that was established in the area. So this, if you continue doing this, the person who is doing the NbS or who is in the vicinity of the NbS, they will know how to manage it better according to your feedback, according to the feedback that they get from the various people that visit to monitor and evaluate what they are doing. Then nature-based solutions are also sustainable and mainstreamed within an appropriate judicial context. So here you ensure that the NbS interventions aim at long-term sustainability, aligning with the sector, national, and other policy framework. So what do we do here? You need to design your NbS in such a way that the design implementation and lessons learned are shared. So, and then you have to make sure that the nature-based solution informs facilitating policy and regulating frameworks, so that what is produced here can be replicated elsewhere that's the same problem. Then the nature-based solution needs to contribute to the national and global targets for human well-being, climate change, biodiversity, and human rights. And from what we saw yesterday, at least we realized that from the logo, from our NbS of yesterday, there was a target for the human well-being, climate change, biodiversity, and human rights. So when it comes from the grassroots, so it's coming from the household, then it goes to the community, then you go to the national, to the district, national, and then eventually to the global sustainable development goals. We will see that we are achieving something from the nature-based solutions. Yes, thank you very much. Any additions, supplements, comments, questions? However. Okay.
Thank you for the agenda. Mine is just to appreciate the way you brought up the linkage. Surely, if they had told me to link it, I think yesterday was one of the questions they asked me, linking it to ATC. and I couldn't really make it very well the way you've done it here. So I think this is a good linkage, and it would also give a good basis like doing proposal writing. They usually want to see the linkages between the startup projects you're proposing and the direction of the government that is being. So this is good, and I request that you also share it.
Yes.
You also share the presentation, which are always cite the source as they usually do at the university. Thank you very much.
Time we want to hand over to Christine.
But before Doctor hands over, let's give Doctor a round of applause.
Thank you so much, Dr. for the presentation. We have got a lot of presentations to share. Let's have a working team as we go to the next session, where we are going to have a presentation from a representative of WUA. So we can keep our team and come back as we proceed with attention so that we can catch up with time. Yes. Next up. I don't feel like this.
Printing. Yes, I downloaded it.
They all just have the same date. But
Okay. Let me open this. This is quiz 2. See this one, how nature based. Not the same email, can think of it. Okay. Okay, just a second, I'm link to that. Okay, these ones were 1, 2.
here is one.
This was different. Yes.
Here is one. Oh, I'm saying it's a job. Can I just connect directly?
Just a second. I just said you can educate. Educate. Is it this one? What was left? Can we send by?
Quiz one. Quiz two. Quiz there is 5. Session. Where we are having a presentation and download. I'm calling for your attention, colleague. Let's move on.
It's 5. Oh, yeah.
The representatives will go on with the presentation. The humans, right? And wildlife, the interaction between.
That means there is quiz. Anti na download the kati ngenda kebera kuziriza mpuliriza register ina.
Good morning. Good morning, colleagues. Morning. The chief of the Cohort consultation. I'm doing a presentation on living harmony with nature, coexistence between humans and wildlife in our perspective. At first, I was confused whether to present for growth, but the whole nature of expression means I need to present on behalf of Cohort. I had to patch up a few things, and the presentation will be so short, given how we relate with nature. I wanted to reflect you on, just as the background, the over focus programs. One is the ecosystem management. Second is the conservation, community conservation, wildlife resource protection, tourism and business management, governance, capacity development. Those are our 5 core focus program areas in our strategic plan. And I see all the contents we are talking about that is lie within those 5 concepts. What is this coexistence about? Living in harmony. Living in harmony is just about coexistence. How do you relate? How does wildlife relate with the humans? How do you manage it? So it goes hand in hand with just finding a balance in a dynamic way between the humans and the wildlife. And you find that humans and wildlife can meet their needs here in the landscape. That's basically the concept of the existence. And there are majorly a few key principles. It's about the balance, the cooperation, sharing the space, and the meeting the needs, the mutual way. Those are the collective principles in that kind of environment if you have to stay together. However, in the environment we work in, you strike a balance to survive because of the different kinds of needs. Struggle for space, and that's on the way doesn't come on the soft plate, but comes with a number of negativities. And these are what we refer to as the conflicts. So in terms of conflicts, because they are between humans and the wildlife, we call them human-wildlife conflict. And that's the term which basically refers to the negative impacts of the interaction between humans and wild animals when their needs, interests, and behavior overlap. So human-wildlife conflicts usually threaten wildlife conservation and livelihoods. That's basically where we, when you touch livelihood, you know you have touched the nerve of every living thing. So in the concept of war, we look at the human-wildlife conflict problem in the dimensions of fueling the conflicts within Ebola and other areas of the CS. So how do we rate this? They are basically 4 areas. The thing you see is showing an interaction because that's the map of the park. An example of Ebola. This representing now all the other parks, but we wanted to give that picture to bring out the nature of interaction, the coexistence, how do we mitigate the nature-based solutions. So we have one element where we find we have a population of wild animals outside the park, destroying crops and livestock. There are animals which are outside and they don't know where a national park is, and they have lived there for years. And as they interact in terms of feeding, they cause those conflicts, produce the destruction of crops, and the killing of the livestock. Then we have another one on wild animals moving from the park to the community. What makes them move from the park to the community? They are either looking for food, looking for water, looking for chances of mating, and other opportunities. Then we have elements of climate change, where, because of course of the water stress, we put it on number 2. We have we also unpalatable conditions, the habitats, like the invasive plants or problematic native plants, which are not palatable in terms of food, and drive the movement of animals across the landscape. Communities also forcing livestock to graze in the areas of the park, and as they graze, they find the leopards, the hyenas. That causes a conflict. Because of different needs, we find ourselves in conflict. So I developed the table just to show you what we do in work and how we come up with numbers of wild animals. That's the population of numbers of wild animals in the rural landscape. And other parts also, we build such tables. We are able to monitor and they also know whether our ecosystem is healthy and still supporting the wild animals, and together as we continue living, as humans continue living with them. So without that, that's our challenge in terms of understanding the ecosystem health. Once we monitor and see the animals, because they are reducing, we know we want to look at the parameters. Why are they reducing? Is it because of the food availability? Is it because of the increased aggressiveness of human beings in terms of poaching and trying to, and poverty to look for the meal, and they turn the aggressiveness to the wild animals to provide for their nature? So we have those number of species. These are basically the medium to large wild animals. They're not the small mammals. So it gives us an indicator on how the ecosystem is interacting with the humans in a healthy way. So it's that population which eventually leads to the conflicts. I brought in an example of the extent of human-wildlife conflicts in terms of the rural area, but also other parts. That's the kind of situation. You find the interface where You find the samples with sort of animals. Those are showing the interface of the location of some of these wild animals. And that's how we mapped out that kind of situation. It's ecosystem, but basically all other parks also facing the same character. And you find we create a lot to see that humans continue surviving with the wild animals in the same ecosystem. It's not a simple way, but there are some measures which we of course use in order to continue surviving. That's just an example of the extent of human-related conflict. The map, you see where the national park is, and you see the surrounding district community, and so on, and the movements. So the nature-based solution, intervention, challenges and opportunities. And in the context of definitions of the NbS interventions, these are interventions that protect, manage, restore natural systems to address natural challenges. They involve working closely. I will not go so much in this because it has been discussed a lot. But in the context, I wanted to put it on the way it relates to our work. Basically, in the last part, as a response to reduce human-wildlife conflict and improve on the security of food and improve well-being of communities, we cut out some of the interventions because what do we do that helps us to move on to survive with these animals, with the communities in the same ecosystem landscape, but having different needs and occupying also competing for space. So a few of the interventions I'm going to show you, and they cut across the entire system of WUA. We have that it's part of the restoration programs of the habitat in the parks. And this particularly is for Moro. And restoration is a two-way. One is through planting trees, but in parks like Kibale, we have forested areas and we have savanna areas. Savanna parks, forested parks. So Moro is a savanna park, but it is slowly becoming a forested park. That's why now we try to ensure we restore the habitat, get back this normal ecosystem, which used to support such animals which survive in savanna conditions. So what makes it unproductive is because of the presence of invasives and also problematic native plant species, which are listed there, like Costatus scenario, and so on. So for the other forested parks, we do planting of trees, Chibare and Eligon, to get back to the ecosystem level, nature-based, so that the ecosystem can still support the functions of human beings together with other species coexisting. We do trenches. Those are some of the trenches we put in the communities. And they are basically protected to prevent the animals from going into communities to destroy crops and also kill the livestock to cause the conflict. So by doing such, you curtail them from causing such problematic events, which in the end reduce on the well-being of the humans. So we want to divest that and continue living with these animals. Next. The ecosystem-based adaptation to climate change effects. Of course, climate change is about the rainfall and the temperature variations. So in dry seasons, you find we experience drought, stress factors of water. Some of the water holes dry up frequently, and we are suppose we intervene by having more water holes in different areas because some locations are not good. And by increasing the water issue, you are contributing to reducing the water stress effects. And also when the area is stressed with the water, it encourages frequent movements of animals from the park to the communities. And that also causes the conflicts. So sometimes we also use the methods of chilling to deter wild animals, especially the elephants, from spraying in the gardens. And also barriers in the buffer zone, we create buffer zones. And for the community enhancement, when you talk of a buffer zone and you are leveraging on their land, they don't like it. So the reason I like you to leverage on the park side, so that but the intervention here, which brings harmony, is creating a buffer zone, but also planted with the crops and palatable crops for the animals, but which provide also cash to the communities. And that will help the communities live in harmony with the park, but also protecting the wild animals. So case in point are the ones in Windy, the gorilla issues and so on. We use those buffers so much, and that. So these are still effects of climate change and adaptation mechanism. You can see the wild animals struggling to grow. It is still telling dam, water hole, and is struggling for its life, but there are rescue mechanisms. And the site is now an enhancement of that water hole to be able to provide this water. As you have more water in the dams, you reduce also the movement of animals from the park to the communities. So you find that most of the times you have the animals in the park, because what would have taken them out to look for water is already provided for. The beehives, so the team of that will take on the beehives in our areas. That's the same system and how we apply in the parks in order to deter some of the wild animals from spreading to the communities. We also use barriers, the poles, natural poles. The officer trying to put up a barrier to prevent the hippos from crossing to the farms. Now, what are the lessons? Some of the few lessons we have learned is that involving communities in wildlife management is critical, is a challenge. It's not a simple venture because there is changing. You need frequent cooperation. You need to build strong trust between the communities. Immediately, you leave them alone, you cause issues because every time they want attention. And also the possibility of coexistence between humans and wildlife is not well understood by many because of these competing demands and interests. So every time we are in a vicious circle to try to look at how every day a new issue comes up. All the time they are calling you, come here, there is this problem, and so on. So the demands keep shifting. So that's the small presentation I wanted to share with you to look at how we try to go about with some of the nature-based solutions to coexist in harmony with the wildlife. Thank you so much.
You, Mr. Kisame, for that presentation that helps us to understand how humans coexist with wildlife. With the presentation, are there any comments or supplements or questions?
For the presentation. Mine is just a very simple question for just experience. I want to know, like, you see NbS, the word NbS has just been a popular place. How is it that side in Uganda Wildlife Authority? And are they popularizing it? Is it still a need? Do they apply it in different, the welcome projects, the what? Or we need to work harder so that you and me and the rest we work harder so that people get to know about it. Just want to know the experience with you.
How they can grow. Didn't see and boy, don't count the one says. But how I numbers for. It's the same to that. That is why maybe that's the crowd. Okay, the.
Have any more questions?
Yeah, thank you for the important for the presentation. I want to inquire about, I know there is the revenue sharing policy. So I wanted to know if there are some of the interventions that may be related to NbS. And maybe another one would be on the issue of the man-wide right conflict. So I also wanted to know how you do intervention on solving, especially farming. I've tried see much of the interventions that are stopping the big animals like elephants. How do you try to control the families? For example, the baboons. But they can also be a havoc, especially on the projects like big and so on. Thank you. The concept of NbS in war, like I said, the second last slide, that's a bit of a challenge. Not so many people might do it. They practice it, but they know that they are part of the nature-based solution. So that means there is quite a need for sensitization. So that people know. We implement certain things sometimes when we don't know that we actually implementing what other people done in no way. In the perspective of interaction, get to know that. Someone asked about the chemicals. Yeah, the table I showed you is, you know, when you are carrying out censuses, there are different methodologies. We have different methodologies for different species. So that one I showed is just an example of what we did. It did cater for the carnivore methodologies. Because some of these carnivores are nocturnal, you need now to do nocturnal counting. You do at night. So if that's aspect are usually done during the day, you walk around the transects as you count individual animals from one place to another. So sometimes you will not see the helpers. They will be hiding trees and sometimes they move at night. So the behavior is what determines the kind of stuff that we do. But those are issues we address, and we know also their population, but it's fast there, most there. So it depends on what approach the whole kind of because just for presentation purposes, picked out. At Timbo, we have different packages. We do cycling. It's only part where you do cycling really without any challenge. And we have accommodation. We do place, we have the boat cruise. We have our boats. And we also do night gameplays. So that you are able to see the leopards. There is some of these behind us, which is they're very applicants. How are they controlled? I don't know your perspective, but we do understand the behavior. We studied the behavior of some of these animals. Most of the animals, we know the behavior, and that's why we are able to interact and live with them. So when you look at this behavior, you are able to understand the condition and be able to guide people. The revenue sharing policy, yes. The revenue is about sharing revenue. That's the nitty-gritty of it. But the way we use this revenue is we allocate the 20% back to the communities, and it's basically the fee we charge for entrance. Get collection, we remove the 20%, and it's turned back to the community. But it has also its communications that the communities are the ones which are set up the projects. This money is made to fund the projects of communities which are basically at the interface with the park, who are suffering the effects of the wild animals. So they select the projects, and then those projects are funded with that money. But the money is channeled to the local government, to the local government acts. We don't keep it, we give it to the local government. They plan accordingly and we come up with the projects. So for us, we have the monitoring end and supervision. So some of these, the way they choose to use the money also relates to some of the issues of digging trenches and so on. So in that also they are looking at solutions which are best, which are able to stop the animals from destroying their crops. The issue of farming, there is currently an act, and this is vested mainly in the farming control officers who are recruited at the local government, and they are the people charged with the handling the family issues, who remains at the issue of technical advisory, the other advice on technicalities to control officer, and in case he needs our help, that's when we come in. And basically, they want to go and manage the farmers because they are categorically classified out, and they have with the control mechanism of the local government. But for technical issues, we can advise the farming control officer how to handle this.
The advantage the control my friend asked here, he was relating to the issue of the carnivores, maybe checking on the numbers of the carnivores. So it was, I think it was not out for when we were going out or coming in. It was mainly of the numbers. Since you did not show the carnivores, it was as if the herbivores are just allowed to grow in number without anything to check on them.
Okay, these herbivores provide prey for the carnivores. Yeah. That's why they are called the carnivorous animals. So in most ecosystems, the way you look at we still have a number of prey for these carnivores. But the only challenge with the carnivores is the population is not so good because of the retaliatory killings. Those are the issues we have talked about. The way they interact with the human plant in the same landscape. Like for the case of Muguro, the interfaces are for ranchers, herdsmen, and so on. And the summer, where these cows may not feel good to stay with the leopard. So sometimes they sneak and they do some killing, retaliatory killings to these animals. But the carnivores, we don't have a big challenge with them. The only challenge is the population keeps on reducing, but we want to do more breeding mechanisms now that we have got more manpower. And the master process, so we are quick to start handling the breeding the way we are doing the rhinos. We have now inside zone for the rhinos, which we are now going to take to other parts because they are being disseminated in Uganda. So right now we have 51 rhinos. So the same way we are going to start breeding some of these cannibals because of the way the harsh kind of mechanism with the communities, bodies without killings.
And maybe, but lions. You have lions in it.
We had the lion in the Kemburo, but it disappeared. We had one old lion, and up to now we are looking for it. It disappeared. So it could have died, but when it dies, there are mechanisms you can do to understand whether it has died. First of all, the vultures very fast to determine some location where animals die from. So once you do monitoring, we do monitoring even with the drones. We have drones, and up to now we have what we suspect that there could have been an aggressive herdsman who could have either killed it and buried it. But we yet up to now, it's number of years now, we don't know how it is happened. Whether it walked to grow and they went and died somewhere in the river, reason we can't tell. That's the challenge we have with them, because it was only one. You can't introduce lions to, you know what, even the one which was there were a lot of myths, the way it came, and nobody knew where it came from. A lot of issues, dogs and the one, but we used to live with it. Then at the time it disappeared. So now if you have been introduced lions, you are now bringing a lot of chaos. Because unless we fence, because we are planning next financial year, the funds allow, we are going to fence part of the pro. That is, I wish I'd put check for where there were a lot of movements and interactions. We want to do some fencing about 40 kilometers. If we do that, then we can think of translocating the other species. Then the lion can survive there.
So the whole of that jungle has no king.
It does not mean, it does only the leopards now. And the hybrids. Depends on the priority. Because right now we are fencing off for Chidepo. We are translocating some of the rhinos to Chidepo. We are fencing off part of Ajay. We are fencing off part of Bakshon. We are fencing off Queen Elizabeth. Towards where you went. And the next move, I think, will be to fence off part of this. The camp. And we are doing this because of the pressure. We have tried most of these interventions, but still we get challenges. And we are thinking that it's the right time now to try interventions which we have not used before. That's the fencing. So if funds are out next year, because it's already in our BFP, we can try with the 40 kilometers or part of the Kepuro and a lot of conflicts. But also, someone talked about the utilization. So they didn't get well. We have a mechanism of sport hunting, which is regulated. These are rich hunters who come and they call it a sport, and they compete in having the biggest sport in the world. I mean, the biggest trophy in the world. So they usually come and hunt for these old buffaloes because those are the ones which are now matured a lot. In the well formed the horns, because those are the trophies they lay, maybe the skin. So they come and pay them because all these animals are classified. We have value for them. You can come and pay money, even if you are the one, if you want to export, you can come. You pay some $2,000 somewhere. And then, yeah, all these were mechanisms we will put in, not that all exist. Because one of the issues, if this animal is killed from your land, 45% of that amount goes to you. And this is how communities benefit. Yes, a number of them, but many of them are the ranchers who have been benefiting from this money. So they kill it from there, they spot it on your land, 45% of the amount of money goes to you. But all these interventions, we are applying them, but you still find people need to do business with poaching, killing some of these animals. So that's why we are now also trying to explore other mechanisms, like fencing.
Thank you so much. When you have.
I just have one small question about super compensation. How they are done.
We are tomorrow attending the rally with the president. These are some of the issues we have to answer for the community up to Friday. So in this issue, one of the biggest issues with compensation is the bureaucracy. The way they tailor the process of payment. Of course, you put a lot of channels in order to avoid a bit of either corruption and so on. But at the end, it becomes a problem. Because cutting across, first of all, the form has different players. So not only one. But at the end, you find who is at the head. The very complaint comes to work. First of all, that form, when we get a problem and we intervene, we go to assess. We come up with a report. We give the person a form to fill. And that form is within the law. The LOC one has to sign. The police has to sign on that form. There is an area where the veterinary person has to sign. In the case of damage for, let me say, livestock, there is where the agriculture office has to sign. In the case of crop damage, and then the form is brought back to the chief warden to approve, and then forward it for, because there is also another management team where the government body also sits. And once they also sit and look at it and approve, it's forwarded to the board now for final approval to award the compensation. So that whole channel there, in many cases, we have found the community is complaining because the district veterinary officer to come and value to give the value of the animal. And the man will tell them, pass them the money for fuel. And when the person doesn't even have 50,000, the man is saying, give me 180. Because I stay very far away from where you are talking about. It is close the process of compensation. Those are the beginning challenges. So this committee can say simply the form. And when it's asked, you say, who doesn't compensate us? But the challenge doesn't know that also local government is involved by bureaucracy. So once that channel is reduced, then it will allow for smooth compensation. But we pay people, and we have the data, even here have the data. We compensate people, but because of the line of bureaucracy, the person then will form a whole man, and when he's in a meeting, you say who doesn't compensate. But someone has the money which it is there for transport or fuel, and the whole challenge becomes compensation. And they are going to say the local government delays. So in some places, what we have been doing, we have set up committees with the local leadership. And we tasked the local leadership to own the forms, like they were security persons. Then the people bring the forms to you, to your office, since you still with these extension workers. Give them the forms to sign when you're in the office. Then forward of the forms to work. So that immediately the budget goes for compensation. And this is where the issues have been.
Thank you so much. A round of applause to Mr. Thank you for that. Presented. And also the promise of share. I don't know, we understand how we are having. And some of the nature-based solutions, we are glad yesterday. We visited the beehive. So from what was presenting, I believe you are able to get. Now, with that, let's go to our next agenda item. We are going to continue with the training. The training on the NbS. Good morning, good afternoon. This afternoon. My name is John, once again. And I'll take you through implementing nature-based solutions in climate change and disaster reduction. Maybe to kickstart this session, we've all had climate change and disaster reduction, or climate change and disaster risk reduction. Could we